Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the whole team. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes you're out at the old ball game.
St. Louis is really the best baseball town in America, and many people say that. Bob Costas would repeatedly say that. A lot of the players themselves talk about how great it is to be in St. Louis, and it's really because it's a history that's built all the way back into the late 1840s after baseball was created in Hoboken, New Jersey by Alexander Cartwright, not Doubleday up in Cooperstown. You know, the first real modern game of baseball in St. Louis happened in July 1860 in Fairgrounds Park, not too far of that epicenter where Sportsman's Park's going to be. And it was with the Morning Stars and Cyclones there in July 1860. Lincoln's not even president. The first shots at Fort Sumter to start the Civil War haven't started. But that's how long baseball's been here in St. Louis, and it grew. There weren't video games, there weren't movie theaters, there wasn't television. There really wasn't much for entertainment, and baseball became this entertaining value. And churches would play against other churches, factories would play after other factories. So it started as this amateur game and became a professional game as all of a sudden, as it became more popular, we wanted the good guys to stay on our teams. America was still a segregated country. It didn't mean other ethnicities other than whites didn't like baseball. They did. The African American community was full of baseball. They loved it just as much. And they probably played a more vigorous and fast style, and people fell in love with that. And St. Louis had these teams, but the one thing they had was Tandy Park, the Tandy Leagues, which played, and it's right across the street from Sumner High School in Tandy Park. It really became the minor leagues for the Negro Leagues.
It was a big deal. Luke Easter was from St. Louis, and he got signed by the Cleveland Indians, and he was a big attraction because people loved to see him hit. He was a power hitter. In fact, I recall my father telling me that, because he played at the Tandy Muni League, that my father was a sports writer for the St. Louis Argus, a black newspaper, wrote for about 37 years. And he covered primarily what was there. And he said that Luke used to always say, I like it when you write about me, Mr. Tweed, but when you say, yeah, when you hit those home runs like that, somebody got to hear about it. So he liked, he loved the attention. He suffered with many injuries, injury prone, they would say, Some, collisions, hit by pitch.
Physical lines, Luke Easter looks a lot better too. I guess his knee is down for good. I mean, no more balloons there in the knee for him.
Well, if Luke can play every day without limping too badly, why, there's no telling what kind of a year he's apt to have.
Well, they say he was the best hitter on one leg. He should be really something on two.
Well, that's what he told me when he was signing his contract.
As I was looking at and reading this and writing this, and I thought about it, I'd say now, 7 years old and his mother dies. Now, I've got an 8-year-old granddaughter and a bunch of little kids, and say, God, what would, that's a heck of a path along the, lifeline for a child to have to travel, Well, he had a reputation for being a people person. And it appears, and it's written that everywhere that he would go, he'd make friends. And when you start making friends, that impacts behavior. And everywhere he went, off the field, or whatever he would do, influence people, and that helped resolve any type of racial tensions. I think Luke had a lot of influence, a lot of positive influence.
The theme of the 16th annual Old Timers Day was World Series
I don't know if you're familiar with the Polo Grounds in New York, where the New York Giants played, and the center field. If ever you see the picture of how Willie Mays went back and caught that ball over, well, he hit the ball in that direction over the fence halfway up the stand, so it's over 500 feet. So people were clamoring to see, and they still like home runs today, you know. He was a hometown favorite in Cincinnati. Wherever he went, he was a favorite. In 47, he had a good year. 48, he had a good year. And those two good years combined kind of pushed him to a bigger spotlight. So that's when they caught the attention, perhaps probably before then, they caught the attention of the Cleveland Indians.
And Joe Tipton, a shrewd handler of pitchers. At first base, Luke Easter, who was bothered by a trick knee last season, is back in form.
Later years, where it says that after 53, that's when the Cleveland released him because he was plagued with injuries. Eyesight, was having problems with his eyes, and he went back to playing AAA or minor league baseball.
As I said, Luke Easter was 34 years old, so you know his real prime years were behind him. But yet he did well with the Indians. He made 2 All-Star games.
The hard part with him, primarily 2 things, I would say: the injuries more than anything else, and advancing age was the other key.
He was one of the men, like so many men of the African-American community, they got to play. So many never did. Josh Gibson and all, Oscar Charleston, all these, you know, it happened decades before, but he got the taste. But what would he have been if he could have played in 1947 or sooner, you know?
In those days, people get paid with checks, and you have to take your checks and get them cashed. And he normally would have had security with him, the police. On this particular occasion, he didn't. And a couple of guys that worked there for that company is the ones that robbed and killed him. You know, they said he tried to talk him out of it at first. And I can kind of see from what I've known and read and heard of him, he was the kind of guy that could talk real good. He was a good talker. And he was kind of like a down-to-earth guy, so I would imagine he was trying to talk these guys down.
And the fact that he was recognized right away with 2 All-Star appearances tells you a lot about his talent.
That was the kind of personality that he had, that everybody liked him pretty much, and he was a real stand-up, fun kind of guy.
Luke wrapped 114 homers, 40 of them in 1957, and batted in 353 runs in just over 3 seasons with Buffalo. Never in the city's sports history has an athlete made such an impact on the community.